Good evening, I'm Joshua Bell. I am so honored to have a long history with the New York Philharmonic. And the New York Phil, America's first symphony orchestra, has a very long history indeed. It all started 178 years ago in 1842 in a downtown coffee house, as they were then called. A group of the city's best musicians gathered. They came from the opera houses, theater pits, churches, with the determination to build a home where instrumental music would be celebrated, front and center. They decided to form an orchestra. Led by a local violinist, Urali Corelli Hill, whose grandfather had been a fifer in the Revolutionary Army, they wrote a constitution. They were a democratic society, after all. One man, one vote. They were their own orchestra. On December 7th, the musicians outfitted the Apollo Rooms on Lower Broadway, a multi-purpose hall, for their first concert. They rented a stage, they bought music stands, they even served as ushers. Beethoven's Fifth was heard by an audience of 600, and the New York Philharmonic was born. As the city grew, welcoming millions from around the world, new venues were built. The musicians worked their way uptown, from Niblo's Concert Saloon in Soho, to the Academy of Music in Union Square, to the old Metropolitan Opera House on 39th Street, and then to Carnegie Hall, the city's first stage built for an orchestra. Meanwhile, the number of players increased from 54 to nearly 100, the best of the best. Their faces and identities reflected those new immigrants from Eastern Europe, Russia, Bohemia, and Italy. The New York Philharmonic was beginning to look as diverse as New York itself. After World War II, the city became the culture and media capital of the world. Lincoln Center opened with the Philharmonic in residence, definitively asserting New York's commitment to the performing arts. New York became an irresistible magnet, attracting people pursuing their creative dreams, and the faces of the Philharmonic expanded to include the best musicians from all over the world: Los Angeles, Taipei, Hanover, Chattanooga, Chicago, Seoul, Tokyo. Today, the diversity of the orchestra can be seen not just in its members, but in its venues. The New York Philharmonic appears throughout the city, from neighborhood to neighborhood, space to space, adapting to the moment and bringing music to the city whatever way it can. 178 years ago, when it became America's first symphony orchestra, the New York Phil was innovating, and it hasn't stopped since. Just like the city it calls home, it will grow, evolve, adapt, and, oh yes, play.